Yeah.
Are you recording right now?
Yeah, so it's picking up here, and it picks up here. So that's why if you're in this space, it's the best. That's what I've learned.
Is this your you edit this out part, or do we?
Well, I don't know. When I edit, sometimes it's fun to have the whatever nonsense. But what's really fun about this, did I tell you how this kind of evolved?
Tell me about it.
Well, I went to that workshop remember the leader in front, leader behind, leader beside.
Oh, I still want to unpack that.
Leader in the field, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a poster on the wall that said reactive versus creative. And I just remember staring at the poster and I'm like, if you move the letter C from reactive to the front, it spells creative. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Yeah, and it's, with the Enneagram and all that stuff, like you've taught me, it's like, it's kind of unlearning our reactive nature into being more creative and aware of our impulse reactions. And so then COVID hit, and then that poster just kind of like became my
that was
jam.
Right? Like I feel like that was the theme, is how do we reinvent during this? So I sorry to interrupt, but
No, totally. And I was like, I'm going to lean into creativity. So I dove into just starting this podcast, which I've been wanting to start, and then doing the Hair and Hats thing with Crosby, and then my Move Every Day stuff. So it's like 3 things that I'm just like, I'm not going to waste time spinning my wheels in fear. I did, of course, a little bit because I'm human, but I just was like, I'm going to lean into creativity. And then I gave myself permission to fail with all of it. So I'm just going in full force. And so if you watch this first one, you're like, it's all like choppy and the sound's off. Like, because I don't have a stabilizer. I didn't even know gimbals existed.
I didn't know until this moment either.
Yeah.
So look at us learning.
Yeah. And I didn't know about tech or anything, but I learned through, wow, that looks really bad. How to make that look better? What do people use? A gimbal? What's that? Oh, okay. And then I bought a gimbal.
That's so fantastic. Well, I'm watching this going, it's not.
Yeah.
Wow. So
yeah, like
really
I could run and still stay stable.
Oh my gosh. And you know what I love is that you're looking at the trees that are part of my sanctuary sometimes.
Oh, so. This is your jam.
Yeah.
This is your secret place to hear the still small voice.
So secret.
Not so secret anymore. Stealing the sacredness now.
No, I fell in love with this place. Sorry, I want to respond to what you were
keep going.
saying, because I thought that was really, I think anytime we come across something that's a major shift, we have different responses that we can take the bull by the horns, shrink back in fear. So I appreciate that you use that word, because fear, I think, is a motivator when we don't even realize it, and also when we are like, okay, fine, let's embrace it. What are we going to do? Learning to fail in that is huge. And so I want to come back to that. But
yeah.
Before we do, so in college, I went to OSU. We're right over, this is the OSU Research Forest. And so acres and acres, they call this McDonald Forest.
Okay.
Acres and acres of both trees that they do a lot of, like the forestry department does a lot of research in and stuff.
Okay.
But then there's just trails beyond trails. And so a little summer gig one summer, I got a job working the trail crew here. And it was glorious. I loved every second of it. But I just got to work on a team of 4. We just built trails, maintained trails. I learned that I was more allergic to poison oak than I ever realized.
Oh, yeah.
And because when you're
that might be a Turgeson genetic thing, because I get it bad too.
Oh my gosh.
You weed whacked poison oak?
Poison oak, because we had to. And so I was on steroids that whole summer, and I was like, okay, I don't think this is my jam. It's totally my jam, but I can't keep this up. So it was a short-lived little moment in time, but I loved every moment I got out here. I would do trail sweeps.
Okay.
And we'd just be able to walk through the woods, and I would do it alone, which now I'm like, there's a lot of cougars out here, but it's fine.
You need to get that shirt.
Ooh, what's the shirt?
You didn't hear about my shirt?
No, did I know about your shirt? I need to wear the raccoon onesie. Then I would have been like, it's cool. I belong here.
That might be worse. Wow, it's a big raccoon. Awesome. No, okay, just a little rabbit trail as we do. The Cascade Lakes Relay, I did a night run, and I'm like, what's with all the horse humans? And horse individuals. And it's to keep the cougars away. And I was like, oh, this is a real problem. And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh man, the wilderness is closing in because there's less noise pollution, all that stuff. And people are being outside more, so I'm like, oh, cougars are going to be kind of maybe a thing this fall. So I was like, I learned about in India, if you wear a mask on the back of your head, you're less likely to get attacked by a tiger. And yeah. Yeah. You don't see Mary put her COVID mask on the back. But it's like, it has to have eyes and stuff because they want to attack from behind.
Of course, right?
And so I was like, well, what if I made a running shirt or a day hiking shirt that has two big tiger eyes on the back? And it says, and I was like, what is it? Well, I need like a word on the top. And I was like, riffing with this guy, and we're like, what about unpounceable?
Yes!
So it says unpounceable with two big tiger eyes on the back.
Yes!
Yeah, so.
That is awesome.
And then, it's got your back.
It's
got your back.
I have eyes everywhere.
Yeah, so it's cool because it's a practical thing. Like, it actually can help you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, anyway. So, you gotta get that shirt.
When I was in Belize, we were walking with a team down to someone's house, and it was in the middle of the fields. And the guy who was walking us there, he goes, so if you come across a panther, and all of us went, what? And he's like, you gotta be big, and get a stick, and do this, and he's teaching us how, and we all it was news to us that we would come across a panther. So I think this is really beneficial information for people. I appreciate you sharing your tiger knowledge.
Wow. Large cats, man.
I know, you gotta watch out for them. They're a thing.
They are a thing.
And they're also, my favorite. So
yeah, me too.
Right? Like they're gorgeous.
If that's how I go out, I'm happy.
Oh, yeah.
I'd way rather die in nature by a large cat than on a deathbed in the hospital.
Dude, can I samey that?
Yeah, totally. Right?
Yes.
I mean, it might suck for like 5 minutes, but...
But yeah.
I feel like they kill you quick. I don't think this long drawn out thing.
I mean, I don't want to look that up to know for sure, to be honest. I think that knowledge is best left unsaid.
Let's just, yeah. Whatever happens, happens. Anyway, so I cut you off. You were talking about walking these trails. It was your sacred space.
And growing up, we had woods that we were out in all the time. And there's just something about the centeredness, the ability to just kind of feel at home and at peace when you're outside. And that was really a time in life where, college is like, what am I doing? Where am I going? And
yeah.
There was a lot of kind of self-reflection that I think the woods just give you space for. And so moving to Albany later, I was like, I gotta take more time to be in the woods. So it's fun. I don't like to go out alone all that often, so it's fun to have somebody to walk with. And
yeah, so this is nice.
Be in the trees with. So
awesome. Well, I feel honored to be in your sacred space. Yeah.
Yeah, we're walking the road, not a trail, but that's okay.
It's in the wilderness.
It is.
Yeah. So
anyway, I want to go back to that permission to fail thing. Mm-hmm. That is something I've really been trying to unpack quite a bit in my own life.
Yeah.
In more recently, and even just hearing you talk about like when we do team building, things like that, and there's that whole like good learning opportunity when we make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's always an opportunity to learn.
Yep.
And we know that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to embrace that.
Yeah.
And to have permission, like self-forgiveness and self-grace, like to give myself the grace that other people are more than willing to give me, but feeling like, oh, but you're not, like are you sure you're really giving that to me? Are you holding this against me that I didn't do it perfect? All those fears that kind of bubble up.
Yep.
And so I've been really trying to unpack that and grateful for words that help me go, oh yeah, I'm fearing again. I need to be willing to learn by flubbing up a bit and by, you know, not doing it perfect the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know where the perfection monster comes into our lives.
Perfection monster, I love it.
But it's definitely
I just had this image. But it's a perfect monster. It's really,
it's a perfect monster.
It's clean.
Yeah. It's very shaming. Yeah. It's very good.
Teeth are perfect.
Maybe it looks scary, but really it's how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
That's the real trickery with that monster.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. I've never heard that before, the perfection monster. I love that.
Well, that's what it is in my life.
Yeah.
Feels like a monster because it's so berating and mean.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's one thing to want to like do better and excel and to always be working on that next level of, you know, growing.
Yeah.
But that's very different than this false expectation that we have to know what we're doing at all times.
Yeah.
And I think that's an unfair thing that probably a lot of us carry. So I've been thinking about that during COVID because for my day-to-day work, I do youth ministry and all that kind of stuff. Well, youth ministry is very much event-based.
Yep.
You're meeting with kids, you're hanging out with them, you're doing life, you're loving on them, and then it all stopped.
Yeah.
It was like, well, as you know it, it's going to look completely different. And so trying to reinvent something, a way to connect with people that they're like, ugh, I don't like online or whatever. It's been a challenge, and it's vulnerable when you're like, I'm going to make videos and I'm going to post them with me because this is how people see me now. And gosh, talk about like fearing not doing it right.
Yeah, it's weird. Especially when you're doing it alone. It's
yeah.
Just you and the camera.
Yeah.
It's awkward. It's super awkward.
I don't know, would it be more awkward if people were in the room though? Like, is it more, I don't know which is worse. I haven't experienced both ends, so I don't know.
I think if you're being filmed but you're not talking to the camera, you're talking to the group, I've found that I've forgot the camera's there. So it's easier.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But if it was me looking at the camera and people were watching me look at the camera, that's like triple whammy. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Mary, I feel like we relate in a lot of ways. Like everything you're saying, I resonate with. And the big one is when I'm in like perfection monster mode, it just is exhausting and it's not fun to grow. Like,
no.
Like I want growth and hardship and showing up messy, like you say, going scared, like those challenges to be exciting and fun, but adventurous as well. Like, no, they're scary, but not this exhausting kind of daunting thing. And so sometimes I'll shy away from growth because it's like, is the juice worth the squeeze with this one?
Oh my gosh, totally.
Because like, is this the perfection monster going to take over and it just be like this miserable, drawn out?
Yeah.
Like planning the family relay race was like absolute adventure, fun, challenging, but just like, all right, we're facing some demons here, but this is like a healthy kind of, it felt healthy.
Sure.
That kind of adventure, as opposed to like this just dead, I'm not feeling alive or inspired. I just feel worse. I'm like putting on a mask during the thing, and then afterwards I feel even worse. It's like what is the difference? I feel like there's a tipping point there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I think you're right. I don't know. For me, it's definitely dependent on the situation, what I'm bringing as I come into it, what I feel like I have enough of or where I lack, right? Like it's all these different things, but also when I feel alone, like when I'm doing, like you said, and when you're alone, that's probably the biggest punch in the gut is, okay, come up with this thing, do it alone, and you'll be alone during it, and then afterward, sit in the loneliness of, did I do it okay?
Yeah.
And I'm so much better when I can just have like that quick, external processing happen before and then after, whether it's my own, okay, here's what's holding me back right now.
Yeah.
Talk through it. Now I don't feel held back because I have this, I've said it out loud. It no longer holds power. And I get to tell those words those perfection words that are hitting me hard right now, who's boss and what's real and what's not. And so that's part of it for me is knowing I get to be on a team,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's one person or 5, like we're moving forward together, and I'm not in this alone.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that one.
Yeah, that's a
Big fan of that one. Because I find I'm my own worst enemy. Like, I'll beat myself up, or I'll even create false perceptions of what I think how other people are perceiving me, and then I'll like dwell on it for like a month, and then they'll say a little thing, like this little feedback thing, and it just like it was all wasted. Like, I got beneficial feedback in a way that everything that I thought in my head that I thought they thought of me was completely off, and I'm like, why was I wasting all that time?
Okay, here's a question that you probably won't be able to answer, but I'm totally thinking it. Have you ever had an idea in your head of what people are thinking that was negative, that was actually true? Like somebody affirmed? You know what I mean? Like, I think, and maybe we all have, I think we all have in different times, like, yep, that's exactly what I was fearing. But most of the time, yeah. I really don't think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you say that, because I think kind of keeping that for me at the forefront of my mind, going, you know what, you're thinking more negative than anybody else in this room, so just be, right? Like, be you.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was reading a book not long ago, and it was talking about how these are rough numbers, but basically like around 80% of our thinking is repetitive.
Yeah.
And majority of it is negative, right?
Yeah.
And
or useless.
Yeah, it's cyclical and oftentimes not helpful.
Nope.
And I was thinking about that, going, well, that just feels like it has more control over me than I want to give it. And so thinking about, like, we have power over all of that. So whether it's the shame monster or, you know, a fear of what they're probably thinking, we have power over that just by being intentional with our thoughts, you know.
Our focus and what we put in front of us.
Yeah.
What we put in front of us, we eat.
Right.
Whether I really am learning that, like, and that's where where I get to choose, like, where am I putting my focus, and how like I have to be intentional with it, and it's silly because as soon as I look at something else, my mood instantly changes, and it's like, oh, that was easy. But when I was looking over here, everything seemed impossible. And so, I don't know. Like, that's what's weird with the COVID thing, is like, it's so healthy for me to be around a lot of different people. So I don't get into this groupthink kind of thing. And especially different people that I feel are edifying and see me as I am. And like, sometimes it'd be fun to wonder, like, what if I could see myself how, like, the top 10 people in my life see me?
Yeah. Oh, I wish you could.
Like, I think so many lies would be broken.
Yes.
So many.
You would be like, dang.
Yeah. Like.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Me.
And like, what if you woke up every morning, and that was this whole thing. I've been following this guy, and he's talking about, like, if you could see yourself how God sees you, you would feel free. And if God is love, then how does love see you? Like, perfect love.
Right.
And I think that's a more accurate way of, like, because when you say God, that's like, well, what does that mean? You know? Right. But if God is love, that's easier to, like, understand. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, how would perfect love see me?
This makes me melt a little bit, because it's like, yeah, gosh.
Yeah.
It's better than what I see.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and then you can use the example of your own kids. Like, how do you see your own kids? How do I see Crosby? And I'm not perfect, and I'm out for his best interest. How much more than,
right?
You know, so.
I think about that, you know, what's the greatest commandment? Love God. What's the second greatest commandment?
Love yourself.
Love others.
Oh, as you love yourself.
Yourself.
Yeah.
I think so many people, they're like, oh, love others. Okay. And I'm gonna serve them, and I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna show them, and, you know, like, and that we're so much nicer to other people than we are to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like.
Mary, is so true.
And how often do we, when I talk, there's been times I've talked to middle schoolers and said, and I'm sure I heard this from someone, but I'm like, you know what I love about mirrors is they always, if you give them a high five, they high five back.
That's so good.
And
Dink.
just now and then, look at yourself
high five.
in the mirror, give yourself a high five,
I'm gonna
tell
do
yourself
that.
You're awesome.
I'm totally doing that.
Practice loving yourself. And when, you know, how often do we talk to people not just when they're young, but in adulthood, and say, what do you love? What are you good at? And they're like, because we have a hard time just saying, yeah. And not even what am I good at, or, because it's not like we have to be this successful person to love ourselves, but just what brings you life? And our self-assessment can be one of our last priorities, which I think makes it easy to kind of be out of touch with ourselves, and so I don't know, I think there's value in appreciating the gifts that we have and what we get to do and how we get to be a part of this world in a cool way, know?
Yeah.
I'm not good at that. Just so you know. That's me thinking, not me always doing.
I've been contemplating this a lot, actually. So two things. One is there a tipping point of like a spectrum of codependency and narcissism? Where like you could go too far of loving yourself where you become narcissistic.
Yeah.
And then too far codependent where you're not thinking enough of yourself.
Right.
And that doesn't help anyone either.
Yeah.
So I feel like both ends of the spectrum can be unhealthy. So I'm trying to like, what is like a balanced way of viewing myself? And I've been thinking like, we are like studying the horses, how they have more mirror neurons than we do in their brain. And we have mirror neurons, like, so mirror neurons. So like when we're around each other, it's
like, a really hard, like, word
neuron,
mirror,
neuron. Especially when you say mirror before, then it just throws it all off. My favorite is like if I'm giving a speech or whatever, and there's one word I just cannot pronounce, and I keep trying. I'm like, okay, somebody help me. And
no, really, guys.
Really, I need some help. They need a neuron. Don't ask me to spell it. Yeah. So horses have way more of those because they are pack animals, social animals, just like we are. But they've developed them so much more than we have, for a lot of reasons probably. But the main one is to survive, because I need to know who's in my pack, who can I trust. And we need each other to survive. So we gotta quickly figure this out. And so, in reflection with that, I think we as humans do that naturally, unconsciously. So like when we're around each other, it's like, woo, Mary, do. And like the cousins, like it's this instant, like, whatever that is that we do. The happy dance. And so I think it's not so much about being perfect as it is aiming to, like, what's our aim, what's our role model, and like looking that direction. And then that's what we'll start to become.
Right.
And that's what's most important, is who we're becoming, not who we are.
Yeah.
And so realizing, okay, well, what am I focusing on? That's who I'm becoming. And if I'm focusing on dark things and icky things and stagnant whatever, well, that's kind of where I'm going to stay. But I can choose, like we've been talking about, like just to look a different way.
Yeah.
So
there really is so much power in that. And just, I don't know, I think it was a few years back, but just someone was telling me, like, their word for the year that they've been focusing on is intention. And thinking about how that word, and I've already said that today, but that word really, by just putting it in my vocabulary more often, I think, oh, it's like a self-stop moment of, what am I intentionally focusing on right now? Or unintentionally?
Yeah.
And how can I be more intentional with the direction I want to go? So I like what you're saying. It's a, I think there's so much value in thinking about what we're putting in.
Yeah. And like listening, like when you go on these walks, and for me running the trails, like I'll get a nudge.
Yeah.
Like, Jason, the still small voice kicks in, like, do this, focus on this. And then it's like, okay. And so like the relay race, for example, I'm like, John, what if we did a relay race? He's like, yeah, let's do it. And then we're doing it. And then it just unfolded with everyone's help. It was totally just all of us together doing it, as opposed to like all the pressures on us. It was just like this, we just went that direction and it all came together. So that's what makes it fun. But it started in the sacred.
Right. With that little, what if we did this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
And so I think that's what, for me, that AM practice of just quieting everything and listening for whatever I'm supposed to be focused on for that day.
Yeah.
Is really, for me, what it's all about.
Oh, yep. There's, I notice a difference in my own life when I'm not taking that time versus when I am.
What am I looking at right now?
Isn't it gorgeous? Do you need to show?
Well, it's just like there's a log.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a thing in the middle of the lake or a pond or whatever.
The island thing, I'm not sure, but this log is part of the logger games. And so we already passed it, but there's a whole obstacle course that they use for training with the logger games, and then this is something that they go out on, and you get judged on how far you go out onto the log. It gets wobbly.
Oh, I love getting judged.
Exactly. It's my favorite thing. Okay, I might be totally flipping that up, but that's what they told me one time a long time ago.
No, I feel you.
I feel you. My only partial knowledge of it. I have no idea. I think somebody was just deciding they wanted to be a lifeguard out there. I don't know what they're doing.
And then this thing with the orange, my team building facilitator mind is like,
yeah, right?
what's happening?
Oh gosh.
What is this? This must be another.
Let's come do some team building with
right?
the youth kids out here.
Seriously, this is like all set up. We're looking at orange stumps. I have no idea what you do with these. But I'm sure if Mary and I put our heads together.
I think at least Karate Kid. I
Yeah.
feel like that can happen here.
That's great.
So I think if we take this trail, it'll take
do
us
it.
back to
Oh, I love
where
it.
we started.
Perfect.
If not, we might be in the dark.
I think my night vision's kicking in, so. This thing has a mind of its own. I kind of like it. And if you hold it wrong, it starts shaking. It gets angry. No, seriously.
I think it's got its own, like, robotic...
It does. It's got, like, its little AI soul. It's like, I don't like that. Change the position. It seriously does, dude. Because it scares me. I'm sorry. I'll hold you different.
I'm sorry. The kids have a little teeny mini robot, and it recognizes faces, and you type in like who the people are, and so then it'll say your name. Mm-hmm. Guess what my name is?
Warrior.
Oh, that's better. Dang it. Mine is the boss.
Oh. So and everyone's like, it's true. Good job, robot. Awesome. We didn't tell you to say that, but you answered correctly.
It's like a little dopamine hit.
Yeah, I am the boss. That's right, robot. Good job. Oh my God. You score points. Mm-hmm. Okay, two things. Okay. I want to get back to the perfection monster because WTF? What is that?
Oh my God! Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we're gonna make that thing look small.
Yeah, baby.
We're gonna turn it into a, I don't know, perfection gnome.
Wait, I turned into a penguin.
It's just then it's a little more lovable. It's like be perfect. This little gardening barrel. Okay, perfection gnome. I'll be sure it's
okay.
All right, buddy.
So cute.
You're so cute down there. Your little red hat. Your little perfect red hat.
Your little. Good job keeping those edges clean. And
yeah, it's doing great. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll be back.
Oh my gosh. This is Jason and I as kids.
Perfection gnome. That's totally. Dude, that might be the solve. As soon as the perfection monster comes, I'm just going to picture a little gnome trying to tell me how to do things perfect.
I think you need to do that.
Okay, that's what we solved that one. Okay.
Yep, okay.
And something really interesting happened to me today. I was at Tree to Tree and doing some emails upstairs, and I heard Henry, because it was just me and Henry doing maintenance and stuff.
Yeah.
And I heard him talking to somebody. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Somebody's here. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll go down there. So I go down there, and there's this guy, and he's like, are you Jason? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, we're supposed to meet.
Oh.
I'm like, okay.
Yes! I love those interactions.
Yeah.
It's like instant affirmation that you're here for a reason and I want to talk to you.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just kind of unfolded. Like he exercises with the old staff, and that staff, his name's Tyler. He was like, you got to meet Jason. Just because he's like, you're Jason in a different body. And so,
you need to meet.
You need to meet. Yeah. And for a while, I guess he's kept telling him that. And all of a sudden, he's been talking a lot about tiny homes. And then Tyler's like, you really got to meet Jason. So he drove out to Tree to Tree. And after an hour-long conversation, he was saying how it's very hard for him to approach people and talk to them. But by his energy, it was like, really? Because he was so excited. And but he's like, yeah, I gave myself an excuse to leave. Every time I got closer to the house, I was like, oh, nobody's here. Okay, I don't have to be here. But he felt like really, what's the word? Like he was just supposed to be there, right? And then he's like, oh, okay, there's this guy, Henry. I guess I gotta talk to him. Oh, he doesn't know where Jason is. Okay, I can leave. And then he was about to leave, and I came down, and he's like, are you Jason? And so him just continually, he was trying to get out of it, but we were supposed to meet, right? And then as he was talking, I was getting the hairs on the back of my neck, and it just went deep, like, went into his life story and the tears and like, just in an hour and everything. And I'm like, and then he knows people that I know in different circles. And he's like, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what is happening? He's like, if I start laughing hysterically, it's because I'm really happy. It was just like one of those moments. And we're going to do a podcast on Monday because whatever this is between me and him needs to like unfold.
Right.
And it's just so cool that, I don't know, I've been really putting a lot more intention into, I guess, my internal, external life with God. And it's kind of interesting to have these things pop up like that. Like, oh, okay. And I even told him, like, what's cool about you coming here is, like, not only are we interacting, a lot more is happening here with your angels and my angels. Like, we all have an entourage, right? Like, yeah.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, and again, that gives me permission to just, like, be with someone.
Yeah.
Just knowing, like, I might not say the perfect thing or know what to say, but so much is happening just with us being in proximity.
Yeah.
Another reason, like, I like to be around people with COVID. You got to be safe, but
sure.
It's so important. It's so important. Because so much on a bigger picture is happening than we can, like, perceive, right?
I truly believe that.
Yeah. I mean, his angels guided him there.
Right.
Out of nowhere, like.
Yep.
And he's got this dream to start a woofing farm and have troubled youth come in and, hey, you want to live at this farm? You also are going to build yourself a tiny cabin, and when you're done, you get to take this home with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like,
that's phenomenal.
I'm like, yes.
Yes! Are we sharing a brain right now? Yeah. Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, pretty much. Do you want to build tiny cabins in the garage? Yep.
Yep. Want to see my tiny house I've already been building today?
Yep. Yeah, so he's been through hardships, like, yeah, a lot. And he's, like, just committed to looking up, not down.
Yes.
And he's just like, I want to help people. This is how I feel like I need to help them and all this stuff. So, just magic.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And like within 5 minutes when you get the hairs on your back of your neck, you're like, okay.
I'm listening.
This is, there's a reason you're here.
Yeah.
So I was excited to share
That's
that
incredible.
with you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I really don't believe those things are by accident. And I don't know about you, but I've had those times where I'm like, I feel like I just need to do it right now. And inevitably, there's that moment I didn't see coming that is like, I'm really glad I did that. And it's incredible that he listened and said, yeah, I need to just have this awkward conversation. Because really that's what the fear is, right? Yep. Is this is going to be awkward or we're going to fear rejection and now I'm going to feel stupid and I'm going to reel over that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes courage. Mm-hmm. And courage is so hard sometimes. And so I love that you guys were able to like you were saying, you're connecting on a deep level, but there's more going on.
Yep.
There was, oh gosh.
Hi.
I thought it was the bird. That was a bigger bird than I was expecting.
I guess there will be some editing. Yeah, I mean, it really is, I'm learning, listen first, and then show up. and show up messy. Go scared, like you say.
Scared, yep.
And you'll be held. Again, there's a lot more for us than against us.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that get stuck in this weird trap, like there's so much against us.
Right.
And there's actually, so much for us. And I'll just talk for myself. Like I put so much pressure on myself, to where it's this huge burden, and then I don't do anything.
Okay.
Because it's easier.
Yes. No,
But it's not easier, and it's a weird thing. It's like this weird conundrum where it's not easier, and then the pressure gets so big where I got to try something else.
Right.
And then that's when I give it all up and surrender, and then that is where I this is where I get like, that's where you experience the love, because the grace was always there, and even in spite of myself doing the wrong thing, grace is still there. It's still there.
Whether I want to hold it or not.
Yeah, it's still like,
there for me.
it's like, yeah, well, okay, about time, Jason. But I still got you anyway. Don't feel bad. Just, now let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
What else helps me too is we have so much time. I think we get in this weird, here, we'll wait. Hello. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for, it's always good to hear some music. Isn't that sweet? Little ukulele on the trail. We have so much time. Like so much, all the time. And then we get like stuck in this, oh, I messed up. Oh, I screwed up my past, and I'm not where I should be, and I flubbed it all up. And it's like, this is like kindergarten to eternity. Like, we're just making finger paintings down here.
Right. Oh gosh, I get giddy when I think about all the opportunity we have ahead of us. And it really puts perspective on the here and now. Like, I love my Grandma Jane. Oh my goodness, she taught me a lot of little life lessons. But one of the things she taught me was, when I was feeling low, she'd say things, she'd give me perspective by saying, okay, is this going to bother you in an hour? Yeah, Grandma, it's going to be so hard for me now. Okay. Now, how about in a year? Oh, I think it would still be hard. Okay, How about in 10 years? No, I don't think I'll care at that point. Okay, so give it that much energy right now, knowing that this isn't forever. It feels like forever, but it's not forever. Mm-hmm. And you can give it some time, but then you can say goodbye to it, because it's not this doesn't define where you're going, And so I think that so often though, in that moment where we're like, I flubbed up, I didn't do that right. Like oh gosh, talk about anxiety, right? Like that's the anxiety moments. And so often like just thinking, okay, this hurts, or I'm embarrassed right now, but next year, sure, I might be kind of like, oh, I get a little red when I think about that, or whatever the
I do the same thing.
But it's not defining my day to day. It's not telling me who I am. It's a moment in time.
Yeah.
And I think this earth is like that. Like it's a moment in what we get to be a part of forever with each other. Mm-hmm. And I give it way more. I give my teeny tiny microscopic moments way more energy than I probably should. When like as far as grace goes for myself. So anyway, did that make sense?
Yes.
I like to blabber.
No, dude, this is what it's all about. Words being
first podcast.
Dude, it's awesome. Yeah. No, this is.
I keep forgetting we're doing this.
No, it's the best thing. Okay, I'm just a little distracted because it's doing this weird. Oh, see, I knew it. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna pause. Okay, horses, go. Oh, you don't want to talk about that now?
No.
Oh, sorry. And horses. Okay, you don't want to talk about horses.
Not right now.
Okay, later.
Unless you're going to tell us about your horse thing, but maybe you've already done that on our podcast. So.
Sure. What I mean, that's the other thing. How do I say this? I've done enough of these where I do that thing where I question myself, like, wait, I've already talked about that. Somebody's already listened to that. And then I start the perfection monster kicks in.
Oh, yeah.
Or the judgy. And I'm like, you know what, let that go. Wherever the conversation goes, it goes.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, it's a gnome anyway. It's not even a monster.
Exactly.
So.
No. Peace out.
Then they just get cracked. And then they don't. They're not as perfect anymore anyway.
Well, okay, so many things. I love this. That to me, that's what's important about like family, and really like, yeah, we have all the time, but also then how much more valuable is it to just spend time with kind of where you're supposed to spend time?
Yeah.
That's actually great and expansive, and bring heaven here, like, and yeah, like, why not do that? You know, so why not do a podcast with Mary? Why not do the family relay race? Why not whatever is, yeah. So,
yeah, what's holding us back? How many times have we said to people, hey, we should do that, and then it never comes to fruition, and every time we see them we say the same thing, let's get together.
Yeah.
And then when we finally make that day, it's like, why did we wait so long for that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that it's easy to push things off, whether it's being creative or relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So funny story. I think our car is that way, but we could keep walking.
I'm still feel like we have more to talk about, so I'm gonna let you.
I really hope our car's that way.
Drive the. I think it is. That feels right.
Okay.
Let's get lost together.
Okay. In the dark.
I wouldn't want to. Some people I wouldn't want to get lost with, but you, Mary, feel like we just would have fun. We built a shelter.
We would. And then we get poison oak.
And we get poison. And then we commiserate about that later.
Oh,
how's your poison oak? It's awful.
It's awful. I feel like I'm in hell. No. I have had it head to toe before. That was pretty bad. So.
Head to toe. Oh man, yeah, you need steroids for that.
Anyway,
ew, not fun.
I don't know where we were at, but
I mean, there's the horses. We go back to the horses.
So, should we talk about horses?
Let's talk about horses. I'm actually going to do another session this Saturday.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, like I'm diving in.
Super intrigued by it. I've, like many people, have always just, there's something about when you look in a horse's eyes.
Yeah.
They see you.
Oh,
and they have an instant personality that just, I don't know, it's like, it's super calming just to be with this giant animal, which seems like the opposite should be true, but they have this ability to speak without words. And so when you talk about this...
Speak without words. Sorry, can we just pause on that for a second? You just said something beautiful. They have this ability to speak without words.
But they do.
That's awesome, Mary. I'm sorry. No, I love that. I love that. I'm going to be like meditating on that for a while. That is so good. Anyway,
you're sweet.
What a gem.
Well, anyway, I was talking to someone the other day about they do horse therapy and are trained in a bunch of, horse training even, and how they horses. You know how oftentimes, like you were talking about this person that you got to meet today, how oftentimes out of our pain and our hardship comes our passion.
Yep.
And she was talking about how oftentimes in horse therapy they'll have animals who have gone through pain, whether it be abuse or neglect, and how
I'm getting the chills, the good chills.
Me too. But how they remember that, and they actually do really, really well with kids who've gone through similar kind of stuff.
Oh.
And so I know it gets me all teary, like, but how
wow.
Right, and when we talk about like the goodness of our God, you can see it in something like that where you're like, okay, you didn't just put this creature here because it's beautiful, but because there's a piece of existence we get to have together.
Tangible angel.
Yeah, and how many times have you heard stories and of situations where, kids don't want to speak, but all of a sudden they'll speak after being in arena with a horse for an hour, or like, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So that's why I was like, I want you to tell me more about the horses, because I hear these things, I'm so inspired by it, and I have zero experience with horses really when you look at it. And so I'm super interested. So, okay, now I'm done talking.
So Jerry and John and the kids are coming to visit the farm on Sunday.
Ooh, fun.
Because Jerry's a qualified therapist.
Yeah.
And whenever you do equine therapy session, you have to have a trained facilitator and a qualified therapist.
Yeah.
You can't just do one or the other.
Right.
So I'm like, Jerry, this is like a side gig that you will love.
And she was raised around horses. She knows horses,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, a lot of my clients go to that farm that you go to. And Katie through Tree to Tree facilitation.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just love how it all puzzles together and it keeps expanding and growing. And yeah. So I'm there. If you're interested in horses, there will be a lot more horses in your world because they're going to be a big part of my world.
Yeah.
They're becoming more part of my world. And so it's just going to happen.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I want to be a part of the journey with you, whether it's just, you sharing, or if, God willing, something else opens up. But I think that would be cool to hear about the journey because I think that it sounds like anytime we get into anything new, it is a journey, right? But especially with this field, it sounds like there's so much to learn and grow in.
Yeah.
So.
It's a whole, it's like entering a Narnia kind of thing.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that farm is Narnia. Like every time I go there, I just see a different layer of it. Like the veil gets thinner. Like I'm like, oh, this place is.
Can we talk? Okay.
Yeah.
You've made these references to the veil and to an experience happening around us that's not seen, but like intuitively known.
Yep.
Like, and I just feel like, and also your comment about bringing heaven here, like, I think there's so much power when we can think about that there's something happening outside of ourselves that when we just say, okay, I want to dive in. I'm going to trust that I don't have all the answers here, but that this moment's bigger than I know it to be right now, and dive into that, live it. Like, that's what I think the horses do too. Not that they have this spiritual soul, I don't know. But like when we just can have moments where we go, there's more happening here than I'm giving credit, and I'm gonna welcome that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had to lean against this tree because I'm feeling high right now. Like, what just happened? Seriously. I need to take a moment. Wow, so much. I got like a download. That was cool. Mary.
I love it. But
Okay.
you know what? That's not us. Like, I really, truly believe that when we, and that's where that intention comes from too, is like, okay, for me, it's like, I believe God is alive and active and he's working. And when I really believe that, and I believe, if I believe what I say I believe, that means there's so much power all around us that we, so often I think we get in this grind of forward that we forget to look around and to take those moments like your new friend today. Like, I'm just going to lean in.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean in.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think
I'm going to explode in a second here. Keep going.
The horse therapy makes me think about that. How it forces us to think about the things we don't have words for right now. But I'm going to lean in. I'm going to lean into what needs to be said, even if we aren't speaking. And I think that's a powerful tool.
And what needs to be felt and transformed and healed. And so this is like awesome. Okay. Like love and truth, hands down, more and more, I'm believing, is like written on our hearts innately.
Oh, yeah.
So like, for example, being self-conscious, like we hate that feeling, right? And we actually kind of like, oh, they're just being self-conscious. And we like have empathy, or it's like, okay, you're fine.
Right.
So just that definition, self-conscious, conscious of self. But when we become other conscious, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And like we conscious, like I'm not conscious about me, because that's like, I don't feel part of the group, and we start doing it. But then it's like, oh, you feel part of the group and you're more excited about experiencing another's beauty and their multifaceted diamond self, that's what we want.
Yeah.
And like, oh, it's like, yeah, there's a weird tipping point with like self-awareness, self-development, self-whatever, to the point where if it's too much, you get self-centered, and you're too much in your own head and self-reflection and trying to improve yourself.
Right.
When maybe it's more about, what am I looking at? And what's my focus? When it's not on me.
Right.
But it's on, yeah, I do.
Well, and I think when we come into a
all
moment,
that stuff.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about how often we come into a moment thinking about self, like you were saying, but instead having that question in your mind saying, how can I come into this situation and love someone today?
Mm-hmm.
How can I be a part of making this moment better for somebody else? Like when we come in first thinking about someone else, it takes all that other stuff away.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't practice that often because I'll be honest, I'm just self-focused sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I have practiced that, do you know how many amazing conversations ends up being had?
Yeah.
And it's like, why do I forget that?
And that's what we all want anyway.
Right.
And we forget that too.
Yeah.
Because we're like, oh, I need to improve myself so I can have those moments. Well, just have those moments.
Right. Like, why do you have to be a certain something before you can? You don't.
Yeah. No.
I know. Makes me feel better to know I'm not the only one.
You're not the only one. The struggle is real.
It's so real. And
but then grace is there. Always. Like,
it's true.
So it's okay.
Yeah, and we learn the same lesson over and over again sometimes. I feel like I'm always learning the same lesson, but that's probably why it keeps on coming back. Because it's like, well, until this becomes a bit more concrete, you're going to keep learning that.
And then that's humility, right? And that's where it's like that place of balance where I use this analogy, like we're insignificantly significant, like a grain of sand on the beach. Like every grain of sand is significant so that there can be a beach, but it's a grain of sand. Yeah. So it has place and purpose, but it's not the end all be all.
Sure.
And same with all of us. Like it's not all about me. It's about all of us together. And then also a cool thing to really dive into too is I believe that everybody's a celebrity. Everyone. Nobody's better or worse in their celebrityness. If we could really see everyone as a celebrity in the cosmos, in this created awesome place, like cool.
Yeah. Right?
But with that humility of like, that person's not better than me. I'm not better or less than that person, but we can experience this together.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe. And then Uncle Brian says too, we are the light that shines through us. And that's so profound. I'm trying to unpack that. Like, okay, how does that work exactly? But then I think of a diamond, and if you put the diamond in the dark, you can't see it. But once you put it like before the sun, it's
yeah.
Something. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Like I'm just. So maybe it's more about where we place ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and what light we're turning on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this other guy's like, you can't turn darkness on. You can either turn the light up or dim the light. Yeah. There's no darkness that you turn. Hey, turn the dark on.
Hey, somebody, could you just turn that dark back on? Oh my gosh. You know what I love about light? And I love these symbols in the Bible has them all over, but just this idea that like, you know, in darkness, the tiniest little speck of light holds so much power.
Yeah.
And I don't give myself enough of that credit, knowing that like, hey, just your joy in that moment matters. You know, just you looking toward learning and growing and talking about that with other people and growing together, like those things matter because they matter to you. They matter when other people share that with you. So, you know, and so recognizing the light, like the light in ourselves wants to be seen, and it has power. Yeah. But it's, I forget about that sometimes.
I had this the last month of my senior year in high school, kind of this like, you know, wow, I'm about to graduate. Like you start thinking about the meaning of life, and one of my teachers who I admired, I just had this real talk with him, like, what do you think the meaning of life is, man? This 18-year-old. And he's like, he gave me this cassette tape back when cassette tapes were a thing. He's like, listen to this. So I put it in, and the first 10 minutes, this guy's telling the story about how his attitude towards life is, if you think of a basement, and there's all these cobwebs and it's dusty, and you're just like this little mirror sitting there in the basement, but there's one window and there's a light shining through the window. He's like, all we need to do is just place ourselves in that light and then reflect it into the dark places of the basement. He's like,
I like that image.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I was like, and then I've used that in talks where your mirror can have all these cracks on it and all these marks and dings. It still reflects light.
Yeah.
So you don't need to like make yourself all perfect, shiny to reflect light. You can just stand in the light.
Yeah. Well, and the dynamic way that the light reflects when it's broken is so different than just the one. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like I don't think we give ourselves enough credit that when we come, not when we're gaining strength from our brokenness, but when we come through our brokenness and we allow ourselves to be used even in and among that brokenness, we actually have so much more to share. But it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's so vulnerable, and it can be nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah. And I find though too, like when my confidence is in the perfect love of God, like that stuff starts to become a gnome, the little gnomes. Yeah. Like when I expand, like heaven is expansive, right? And so when the more I expand, like you read The Great Divorce? C.S. Lewis?
I actually don't think I've read that one.
Okay, so
I need to read it. That's what you're
can we just go this way just for a little bit? Because I want to unpack this. A lot of cars ago. I really want to talk. We should read this book together.
Okay.
I've actually given retreats on this book.
Yeah.
Like, it is. I've read it probably 20 times, and it's like this big. It's like really small.
Oh yeah, I think I own it. Maybe?
It's so profound. Is that maybe? Yeah. And I'm more of an audio learner, so I've listened to the book, a million times. And so Dante's Inferno is a journey from heaven to hell, or from earth to hell, and this story is a journey from hell to heaven.
Okay.
And so all these people are in the gray town, and a bus comes at we'll say 6 p.m. every day, and you can get on the bus anytime you want. And so people get on the bus, and then the bus takes off, and it goes up the side of this cliff, and then it parks, and it's like, okay, you can get off or you can stay on the bus. And then the people that get off, that's the journey of the story. That's how it begins. And then the first thing that we call them the gray people, notice is when they step on the blades of grass in that level, we'll say, the grass pierces their feet because they're so thin, and it's like knives through their feet. But the more that they walk on it, the more they're there, it doesn't pierce their feet anymore. Yeah. But they kind of have to go through that, And then that's just the first level, and then it just keeps going and going and going and going, and then it's like, where are you taking us, Mr. Lewis? Yeah, and it gets really profound to the point where at one part in the book, he looks at a crack in the ground. He's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Well, that's where you were." Hell is so small in the vastness of heaven that a butterfly could swallow it in the heavens and not even know it did. That's how tiny hell is. Right. Yeah. But when you're in this big, expansive, huge place, the little things that we thought were perfection monsters are like little gnomes now. Yeah, yeah. I love that. But even that, you could be like, oh, I'm letting this gnome be big or whatever. Right. Well, then, okay, we're human. Sure. We're in kindergarten. It's okay.
I'm proud of my finger painting.
Yeah. So I think for me is just more love, and more seeing myself the way perfect love sees me. And that on that internal journey, that relationship with me and God, like a real intimacy, that connection is what changes my life, and nothing external. Yeah. Or external perception, I should say. Right. That's not real. Right. So.
And it's in those spaces where we allow love, that's where we get the most real with ourselves and with others. And that's that space. I mean, I feel right now where it's like, yeah, let's just be real. That's the most energizing, important moments of my life, is those spaces where we just get to be without any preconceived anything, or without any like, you know, oh, we're supposed to be a certain way or act a certain
Yeah.
We all know we don't act a certain way because people tell us to. It just comes out, and it's not it's not always socially appropriate. No. But anyway, just giving each other that space. That's where I've seen so much growth in myself and in others. When someone comes and like they're in their shame monster moment, which that's another podcast just to talk about that.
Yeah, seriously.
But they're in that moment and they're coming to you in that like fear of how are you going to respond, and you get to, not you have to out of like a fake response, but you get to respond in love and to see them past their failing, their moment of, you know, hardship, and just to see them in the moment where they feel like all anyone will see is my mistake, and you get to go, no, like.
That was that guy today. That was that guy today. He was. Yeah. He's like, I was terrified to come here, but I did anyway. And then he's like, now I feel like I can just be with you.
Right. Yeah.
It's like everything's okay.
Because you gave him the space.
And he was just like, all this stuff was released, you know.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And all I did was listen.
Yeah.
I said very few things.
But you let him be him in that moment, and you welcomed him with love, because that's what you're about. And
I hope to be, aim to be.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think you do. And of course, we can always be learning what that looks like. But like, I think that those moments are moments that resonate with people always, because they're like, whatever that was, I want more of that, you know. And we get to egg each other on and do more of that for each other, and that's, to me, that's heaven. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And with that,
that's a good.
We bid you adieu.
We bid you goodbye. We are fun. Can't you wait till next time? You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
So be miserable until you're with us again. Oh. Bye.